On a cool May morning, with green vegetation all around, Rebecca Thompson woke up before her 6:30 a.m. alarm, as usual. After making sure her husband Michael's quiet breathing was still beside her, she slipped silently out of bed, ready for another day of work. Even on a holiday, Rebecca sighed softly as she looked at the clock in the living room. She remembered that last night Michael had also stayed late at the police station. Ever since he was promoted to chief detective, their life had changed considerably. Standing in the kitchen, Rebecca quickly started preparing breakfast. Blueberry pancakes were her daughter Emily's favorite. As if drawn by the sweet aroma coming from the pan, she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. "Good morning, Mom." Emily appeared in the kitchen, her ponytail swaying. Already dressed in her school uniform at 14, her daughter seemed to have a more mature expression. "Good morning, Emily. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, but my head hurts a little." Rebecca stopped what she was doing for a moment. Emily's migraines had been more frequent lately. The doctor said it was due to stress, but no one could give her a clear answer about the cause. "If you start to feel sick, go to the nurse immediately." "Yes, I'm fine, Mom." Emily smiled, but to Rebecca, it seemed she was hiding something behind that smile. "Good morning." Michael came down the stairs, already changed into his suit and tie. He sat down to breakfast while checking his cell phone as usual. "Michael, are you going to be late again today?" "Yes, there's an important meeting. Don't wait up for me for dinner." The conversation was brief and distant. The familiar laughter that used to fill their mornings had long since faded. "I'm leaving." Michael took a bite of pancake, drank a quick sip of coffee and hurried towards the door. "Dad, have a good..." Emily's words were interrupted by the sound of the door closing. The goodbye hug she used to give her father every morning had lately become a rare occurrence. Through the window, Rebecca saw Linda Wilson, her neighbor, getting ready to go to work, loading packages into her Amazon delivery van. Their eyes met, and Rebecca gave her a slight nod. Linda, who always had a warm smile, seemed worried today. "Mom, I'm leaving too." Emily stood up and slung her backpack over her shoulder. "Take care. Call me immediately if you start to feel sick." "I'll have a good day at work, Mom." After saying goodbye to Emily, Rebecca started cleaning while her mind wandered. Was the change in Michael simply due to his busy work schedule? She felt that Emily's health problems were not unrelated to the tension in the house. While reviewing her schedule as a real estate agent, she tried to contain the anxiety growing in her chest. She had an appointment in the afternoon to show a new property, and needed to finish the paperwork at the office before that. As she headed for the door, her reflection in the large living room window made her stop. Beneath the image of a businesswoman in a navy blue suit, the signs of fatigue were evident. Rebecca straightened her back and stepped forward. It was time for a new day. With a sip of coffee, she went over her schedule at her desk. From her office window, she could see the residential neighborhood surrounded by fresh vegetation. The peaceful May morning was already approaching noon. In this season, the exclusive residential area of Washington was full of colorful flowers. She remembered the excitement she and Michael felt when they moved to the city 15 years ago. As a police officer, her husband had been a proud protector of the community. The colonial-style White House they chose together was the place where Emily had grown up. Everything was supposed to be a perfect family story. Just then her cell phone vibrated. "Emily." Rebecca frowned as she saw the message from her daughter. "I should be in class. Mom, I feel sick. My head hurts horribly. I'm at Dad's house, but he seems busy. Please come home." Rebecca's hands began to tremble. The migraine attack she had feared since morning. And even though Michael was at home, what worried her most were the quotation marks around the word busy, as if Emily was trying to tell her something without saying it directly. "Jane, I'm sorry. Could you cancel the property showing this afternoon?" While calling her colleague, she was already standing, grabbing her purse and cell phone. Her fingers trembled with anxiety as she tried to write a reply to Emily. "I'm on my way. Lie down and wait for me." Before leaving her office, she read her daughter's message again. Something wasn't right. Since Michael's promotion, their family life had gradually changed. He worked on holidays, came home late, conversations became increasingly shorter, and Emily had more frequent migraines. Maybe all of this was a warning sign. As she drove, Rebecca's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Michael being at home was unexpected. Last night he had said he had an important meeting. Lately, he seemed to be avoiding spending time with his family, using work at the police station as an excuse. The car stopped at a red light. Rebecca gripped the steering wheel tightly. Something wasn't right. Just as that thought crossed her mind, her cell phone rang again. "Thanks, Mom. Please hurry." Emily's second message. The text conveyed her daughter's pain and anxiety. Normally, having her father at home would be reassuring. But coupled with the urgency in her words, her motherly instinct was on high alert. Something was out of place. Michael at home, Emily's condition, none of it was normal. She passed the Kroger supermarket and entered her residential area. The wide streets, well-kept gardens, and spring flowers in full bloom. What was once a peaceful landscape now felt unsettling. When she was about to turn the corner towards her house, a familiar figure caught her attention. Linda, her neighbor Linda Wilson, was standing in front of her house in her Amazon delivery uniform. At this hour, she should be making deliveries on her assigned route, but instead, she ran towards Rebecca as if she had been waiting for her arrival. Her expression was tense. Rebecca had never seen her like this. "Rebecca, wait. Don't go in yet." Linda stretched out her arms, stopping her as she tried to get out of the car. A dark shadow clouded her face. For 15 years, Linda had observed the daily lives of her neighbors. Her observant eye, sharpened by her experience as a former nurse, was always attentive to details. "Emily isn't feeling well. I need to go in. Before that, there's something you need to see." Her voice was low, heavy. With trembling hands, she took out her cell phone. "I took this an hour ago. I noticed it while making deliveries." Rebecca looked at the screen. The first photo showed her living room, clearly visible through the large window. A small cry escaped her throat. In the picture, Emily was lying on the couch, and behind her, Michael was embracing a young blonde woman. Jessica. Rebecca knew her name. She was the new administrative assistant at the police station. A woman recently assigned to Michael's department, with flashy makeup and ambitious eyes. Could it be? "There's more." Linda swiped her finger across the screen and showed her more photos, one after another. Images taken from the bedroom window overlooking the backyard. The two of them going upstairs. And most heartbreaking of all, Emily alone. Rebecca's heart froze as she saw the last picture. Her daughter curled up on the couch, suffering a migraine attack, completely ignored, abandoned by her own father. As a mother, this was absolutely unforgivable. "Why? Why did you take these photos?" "I've been making deliveries in this area for 15 years. I'm used to noticing unusual situations." Linda hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I went through something similar with my ex-husband. That's why I couldn't stand idly by." Her voice mixed the coldness of a former nurse, the fury of a longtime neighbor, and the pain of past experiences. "But what worries me most is Emily." Rebecca tried to move towards the house, but Linda gently held her arm. "Let's call the police. This is child neglect, adultery, and betrayal." The cold words fell from Rebecca's lips. Her husband was the chief detective of the police station. Having such conduct during service was not only infidelity, it was a serious matter, a betrayal of the police force and, above all, her family. "I'll be a witness," Linda said firmly. "I have evidence in photos and videos. I'll protect you and Emily." Rebecca nodded slowly. With trembling fingers, she unlocked her phone. Before dialing, she looked Linda in the eyes once more. Her neighbor's gaze reflected determination and support. "Thank you. Of course. Taking care of families is the community's responsibility. That's what we're here for." She no longer hesitated. She pressed the emergency call button. This was the beginning of a battle to protect her family, to protect her daughter. The first patrol car arrived a few minutes later, then another and another. Red and blue lights flashed on the quiet residential street. Uniformed officers came out one after another. Neighbors began to peek out their windows, murmuring among themselves. "Are you Rebecca Thompson?" The first officer to approach placed a hand on her shoulder gently. Her badge read Lieutenant Sarah Johnson. Her eyes conveyed calmness and experience. "Yes, my daughter is inside. She's having a migraine attack. Don't worry. First, can you tell me the details of the situation?" Linda stepped forward and showed her phone. Here I have evidence, photos, and videos. Lieutenant Johnson quickly analyzed the situation and called for backup on her radio. Her voice sounded tense. At that moment, the front door burst open. Michael rushed out, his normally impeccable suit disheveled, his tie askew. Behind him appeared Jessica, her makeup smudged. What the hell does this mean? Michael blurted out, his voice trembling with anger. Why did you call the police? But in his eyes there was not only anger, there was fear. His position, his reputation, his life as chief detective, everything was about to collapse. Despair contorted his face. There's nothing wrong here. This is just a misunderstanding. Jessica tried to intervene, but the officers stepped forward. Mr. Michael Thompson, please stay where you are, ordered Lieutenant Johnson, her tone firm and authoritative. Johnson, I'm your superior. Revoke this order immediately. I'm sorry, Chief, but right now you're a suspect. Just then, a weak voice was heard from inside the house. Mom! Emily appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale, both hands pressing her head, her eyes full of tears. Rebecca tried to run towards her, but the sound of an approaching ambulance stopped her for a moment. Wait, Rebecca. Linda held her firmly. Let them secure the evidence first. It's for Emily's sake, too. Those words made her react. She had to stay calm. The photos and videos would reveal the whole truth. One of the veteran officers approached Michael silently. The looks from his former colleagues were full of sadness and disappointment. I haven't done anything wrong. This is. His voice trailed off. Beside him, Jessica burst into tears. Suddenly we love each other. Nobody can interfere. Her hysterical cries drew the attention of the neighbors. Several cars had stopped in the street, increasing the tension in the atmosphere. The paramedics tried to lay Emily on a stretcher. Rebecca held her daughter's hand tightly. It's okay, Mom's here with you. Emily nodded weakly. Her eyes reflected the weight of the truth she had been hiding for so long. I'm sorry, Mom. I couldn't tell you. Dad changed. You didn't do anything wrong. Everything will be all right now. While mother and daughter talked, the officers secured the scene efficiently, gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, controlling the area. Everything was handled with professional precision. Just then, a black SUV crossed the line of patrol cars. A man in civilian clothes got out of the vehicle. His Internal Affairs badge shone on his chest. I'm Robert Williams from Internal Affairs. His arrival completely changed the atmosphere at the scene. When the misconduct of a high-ranking officer came to light, it was treated as a serious matter affecting the entire force. Mrs. Thompson, can we talk in detail? Williams' voice was surprisingly soft. After they examine my daughter. Of course, her health is my priority right now. Rebecca nodded gratefully. When she was about to get into the ambulance, Linda raised her voice. I'm going with you. My experience as a nurse might be helpful. Under the scorching sun and blue sky, the ambulance siren sounded again in the distance. Rebecca watched as Michael was escorted to a patrol car. Jessica was crying hysterically. Officers were gathering. She gripped Emily's hand, thinking that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new battle. Ma'am, we're ready to go. The paramedics' voices brought her back to reality. Her past life flashed through her mind like a movie. But at the same time, a new determination began to sprout within Rebecca. To protect her daughter, to recover lost justice, to rebuild her life. The ambulance started, the sound of the siren announcing a new beginning. In the city, the hospital waiting room was immersed in a heavy silence, interrupted only by the ticking of the clock. It had been an hour since Emily's examination began. Rebecca sat in a hard chair, clenching her hands tightly. Beside her, Linda offered her a coffee without saying a word. Thanks. Just then, the door to the examination room opened. A middle-aged doctor approached with a serious expression. Her voice was soft, but her gaze revealed that the situation wasn't simple. Emily's condition is stable. Rebecca felt a momentary relief. But then the doctor paused before continuing cautiously. It seems that repeated psychological stress has been causing her migraines. She must have been suffering for quite some time. A sharp pain pierced Rebecca's chest. How had she not noticed? She felt guilty as a mother. Can I see her? Yes, of course, but the police also need your statement. Rebecca entered the hospital room. Emily lay in bed by the window, breathing calmly while receiving intravenous fluids. Rebecca gently took her daughter's hand. Emily's eyes opened slightly. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Rebecca shook her head. I'm the one who's sorry. I'm sorry I didn't realize. From the corner of the room, the internal affairs investigator Robert Williams watched the conversation silently, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Miss, can I ask you a few questions? Emily nodded slightly. There was no longer fear in her eyes. Dad started to change about 6 months ago. Emily's testimony was surprisingly detailed. The changes in Michael's schedule, the few conversations at home, the beginning of his relationship with Jessica. Everything coincided with the period in which his promotion to chief detective was decided. At first, I thought he was just busy with work, but... Her voice trembled. One day, I went to the police station for something and I saw Dad with Jessica. The revelations were even more shocking. Inappropriate relationships within the station, dating during working hours, possible cover-up of information. Dad told me not to tell anyone. Rebecca felt her heart shrink as she saw her daughter's tears, but at the same time, she felt immense pride. Emily had gathered the courage to tell the truth. Meanwhile, at the police station, another shocking development was occurring. Investigations of Jessica Miller revealed terrifying facts. She had used the same tactics in other police stations before. She approached married officers, obtained information about promotions and privileges, and leaked confidential information. There was a history of security breaches and leaks of internal investigations. In the interrogation room, Michael Thompson sat hunched over in front of his former colleagues. I only. Stark stared at him intently. When my promotion was decided, she approached me. At first, I thought it was just an administrative matter, but as Michael spoke, the dark truth within the organization came to light. Factions within the police, strategic movements for promotions, Jessica's plans manipulating him. She knew everything. His weaknesses, his desires, his fears. However, his words of regret couldn't change the irreversible reality. Meanwhile, at the hospital, William shared the new findings with Rebecca. Ma'am, this is no longer just a personal problem. His tone was low but his message forceful. There are indications of corruption within the organization. Your testimony could be key to revealing the truth. Rebecca felt a strong urge to move forward. This wasn't revenge, it was justice. Linda's photos and videos will be key evidence, she said determinedly. She turned to look at her friend, who had been silently supporting her all this time. We're not alone. Linda smiled confidently. Support had already begun to arrive from community groups, social workers, and church organizations. As evening fell, the sun filtered through the hospital window, gently illuminating Emily's sleeping face. Rebecca had just hung up the phone with her lawyer. We're going to proceed with the divorce. Custody of Emily will be yours without a problem, the lawyer assured her. His words marked the beginning of a new life. Mom! Emily's soft voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Rebecca approached immediately. What's going to happen to us now? She tenderly stroked her daughter's hair. Don't worry, we have people on our side. And most importantly, she smiled firmly, we have each other. Months later, Rebecca and Emily had moved to a new house in another Washington neighborhood. It wasn't far from their old home, but it had something different. It felt like a fresh start. Mom, the pancakes smell delicious. Emily came downstairs with light steps. Her migraines had disappeared. This morning was special. Mother and daughter sat at the breakfast table. The aroma of blueberries filled the air. The tension of the past was gone. Now only peace remained. Mom! Emily left her fork on the plate. Her tone was hesitant. Yesterday I received an email from Dad. Rebecca remained silent for a moment. Michael Thompson had been sentenced to 2 years in prison for abuse of authority and violation of public service ethics. His relationship with Jessica Miller had left deep wounds in the organization. Dad says he's in a rehabilitation program, and he wants to see me. Emily's voice was full of mixed emotions. Rebecca carefully chose her words. It's up to you. You don't have to if you don't want to. Emily lowered her gaze thoughtfully. I would like to see him someday, but not yet. Rebecca nodded silently. Her daughter had grown. Just then the doorbell rang. Linda was at the door with her usual smile, ready for her morning greeting. She still came by on her Amazon deliveries. Linda. Rebecca greeted her with a smile. Good morning. Did you see the news today? Linda held up her tablet and showed Rebecca the screen. Police reform had been approved. Anti-corruption measures were reinforced. The incident had caused significant changes in the organization. Internal reporting systems were established, measures against harassment were strengthened, and family support programs were improved. Your courage made this change possible. Linda's words caused a lump to form in Rebecca's throat. It had been a tough, painful battle. But in the end it was worth it. Society was changing for the better. By the way, how's the new job? Rebecca smiled enthusiastically. She now worked as an advocate at a support center for victims of domestic violence. A place where she could use her own experience to help those going through the same thing. Yesterday a new client arrived with her children, she told Linda as they chatted non-stop. At that moment Emily appeared in a hurry, putting on her uniform. Mom, I'm leaving. Be careful. Oh, right. Rebecca handed her a small paper bag. Your lunch. Good luck at practice. Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. Cheerleading was her new challenge, something she had decided to try after the move. And in her smile there was no trace of the darkness of the past. See you, Aunt Linda. Rebecca watched her daughter go out the door and let out a deep sigh. She looks happy, Linda commented with a smile. Rebecca nodded. Yes, she really is. The first rays of sunlight entered through the kitchen window, illuminating the blueberry pancakes on the table. It was as if the scene itself symbolized their new life. Oh, that reminds me. Linda seemed to remember something suddenly. You're coming to the community barbecue on Sunday, right? Everyone is waiting. It was an event where church groups and people who had supported them would gather. Rebecca smiled warmly. Of course. Emily is excited too. At that moment her cell phone vibrated. A message from the support center. Can we consult you on a new case? Rebecca replied immediately. Yes, I'll be here. She knew what her mission was. Being there for those who suffered was the best way to give back to those who had supported her. Well, I'm off to work too. Rebecca watched Linda walk away and thought about how unpredictable life can be. Sometimes it takes unexpected turns, but if you have the courage to face the truth, you'll always find a way. And most importantly, you don't have to do it alone. By the window, a small houseplant grew in their new home. It was the one Emily had been caring for so diligently. Its new shoot stretched towards the morning sun, a reflection of her own life, making its way towards the future. Well then. Rebecca stood up, took her purse and went out. It was another day to light small lights of hope in someone's life. Outside, the autumn breeze blew softly, as if announcing the beginning of a new season.